98.1 Love Music, Love Live. This is Freshly Pressed with me, Zibi, right here on Smooth Breakfast. I'm joined by Mr. C, and we're having a conversation with regards to everything making the news this beautiful morning. Hello, Mr. C, welcome.
Good morning, Zibi. Good morning, Lagos.
Awesome. Right, don't forget, you can be a part of the conversation. All you need to do to get your thoughts across to us is send them via WhatsApp. The number is 0809 4440981. And you could, of course, tweet at Smooth981. So let's get into the conversation this morning on Freshly Pressed. Now, we're starting things off with a report from the Daily Post. Military secures release of 23 remaining passengers of Abuja Kaduna train attack. Now, the military has confirmed that 23 passengers who had been held hostage by Boko Haram terrorists from following the attack on the Abuja Kaduna train have now been released. So that is great news for their family, their friends, and most Nigerians, I believe.
Yes, very correct, Zibi. This is really very good news, and it's gratifying to know that finally the torment and ordeal has ended. And
Mm.
I want to believe by now they've been reunited with their loved ones. And kudos to the Nigerian government, kudos to the Nigerian military for ensuring that this happens. Now, we don't have the details as to what exactly transpired or what went down, but at this point, maybe the details don't really matter.
Mm.
What matters is the end result, that is safely back with their loved ones. And for all the other abductees of other abductions that are still in captivity, this is encouragement to the Nigerian military, to the Nigerian government to go out and safely bring back those who've been abducted. So kudos, job well done.
Now, in a statement which was issued Wednesday by the Chief of Defense Staff, the release, they say, was secured on Wednesday. And I just want to read out a little bit of that statement. It says, I'm pleased to announce to the nation and the world that at 1600 hours today, Wednesday, of course, the seven-man presidential committee assembled by the Chief of Defense Staff, General L.E. Irabo, secured the release and took custody of all 23 remaining passengers held hostage by Boko Haram terrorists following the attack on the Abuja Kaduna train on the 28th of March 2022. Now, yes, indeed, it is good news. And I mean, it's also good for the economy because I remember the Minister of Transportation had stated that the trains would not resume operations while there were people still in captivity. So, does this mean perhaps that train will begin its operations once again?
So correct. The minister did say that, and now that the abductees have been safely released, we look forward to seeing the resumption of the Abuja Kaduna train service. But more importantly, we look forward to seeing what new security strategies or methods have been put in place to ensure that there is no repeat of that incident. And it's instructive to note that the Nigerian Air Force had already indicated it will be liaising with the NRC, possibly to have overflights whilst the trains are moving between both locations.
Mm.
And then we note that earlier this week, the federal government had announced that vigilantes would also be engaged, presumably because they know the terrain, they know the layout of the land.
Right.
So we're hoping that with this new combined security efforts that there will not be a repeat of the unfortunate March 28th incident.
And should Nigerians care about the behind the scenes details about the release?
It would be good, well, as much as national security permits, it will be good to know.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, if we don't get to hear the details, that's fine. What's important at the end of the day, like I stressed earlier, is the result, and they're back home. So kudos on this one to the federal government.
All right, so we're moving on to the punch, and this one says court clears Magu cleric of 573 million naira fraud. Now, the former acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Magu, has been exonerated over claims that a Pastor Emmanuel Omale of the Divine Hand of God ministry and his wife had aided him in laundering the massive amount, 573 million naira. Now, during the investigation, it was alleged that the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit had revealed that the money had been paid into the church's account and later on used to purchase a property in the United Arab Emirates. Now, the judge in his verdict said the evidence before the court showed that the bank had actually admitted some sort of error in the number of entries that were reported in that churches or ministries accounts. What do you think?
Okay, so very quickly, at least I think this was 2 or 3 years back, the then chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, was accused of all sorts of sundry offenses. And one of them was that he had colluded with Pastor Emmanuel Mali to launder the sum of 573 million. Now, we must recall that on the strength of those allegations, he was suspended from office and he never got back that office. He never returned to that office. Now, Pastor Emmanuel Male did not take the matter lying down, and he did approach the courts to clear his name because he maintained his innocence and insisted that there was no such relationship between him and Mr. Magu and that he had never laundered any money, let alone 573 million. This suit was filed in 2020. This is 2022. Judgment has finally been delivered, and Pastor Emmanuel Male has been exonerated by the High Court. And he was exonerated on the basis of evidence provided by the bank in question, which said it was an error due to an upgrade in its banking software, and that it mistakenly reflected as a credit entry, but there was no such credit entry. And it's instructive to know that damages were awarded.
Yeah,
I think in some of
540
yeah,
million.
I expect the bank to appeal because they're the ones. If I understood the reports correctly, the bank is supposed to pay, so I expect them to appeal. But what's important is the bank is not appealing the substance of the judgment. The bank is appealing the damages awarded. And it's also instructed to note that at least on this allegation, both Mr. Magu and Pastor Malem are both innocent, and there was no money laundering, there was no 573 million. And this is a lesson to all Nigerians. If you're wrongly slandered, you're wrongly accused of doing something you haven't done, please approach the courts, clear your name. It's important. Don't let it hang over you like a cloud. Because sometimes the conventional approach is just let sleeping matters lie and we move on to the next beat. But the courts are there. It's been only 2 years, and we must remember 2020 was COVID.
Right.
So, despite the seemingly slow nature of the Nigerian judicial system, there's been progress, there have been improvements, and please, the courts are always there to give us justice.
Now, when it comes to people seeking redress in court, there's this phrase that justice delayed is justice denied, and this sort of makes people lose faith or confidence in the system. How can people actually get justice in a timely fashion that they actually feel like, what, this has been properly addressed, and I'm walking away happy? Because I mean, these cases take a lot of time and cost a lot of money too.
So there are a number of reasons why cases seem to take forever. One, we don't have enough judicial officers on the ground. Two, they're overloaded with cases. Three, the conduct of some lawyers also is quite disappointing. They employ all manner of tricks to delay the speedy prosecution of cases. But thankfully, there are other forms of dispute resolution now. There's mediation, there's negotiation, there's arbitration. And some of the state high courts have introduced multi-door courthouses where you can explore these other forms or avenues of dispute resolution to get speedy resolutions of all business disputes. And it's important that we all key into this, because if Nigeria is to become the global country we want it to become, we must have a mechanism for effectively and swiftly disposing of disputes. And when that happens, the confidence of the people in the judicial system will be increased, it will be enhanced, and then we can only grow stronger and reap the collective benefits.
Okay, so let's move on to our next headline. This is from Punch. Denying Amotekun and others arms is discriminatory, lawyers tell Buhari. Now, the understate governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, had recently faulted the federal government over its approval to allow Katsina State security outfit to bear arms while disapproving the Western Nigeria Security Network, codenamed Amoteku, of the same. Now, the governor had recently voiced his displeasure with regards to the disparity in allowing one group to carry arms and then the other to not have that same grace extended to it with regards to the security situation across the country. Now, there was a video which actually went viral, and on that video, there were members of the Katsina State Security Outfit who were or who appeared to have some very interesting and some would say sophisticated arms in that video. Now, what do you think about this, though?
Okay, thank you, Zibi. So this has been an ongoing discussion. Now, the video you referenced was the video of the Katsina State Vigilante Group
Mm,
being trained over 5 days on how to use pump action rifles. Now, we must make a distinction. A pump action rifle is different from an AK 47 rifle. The AK 47 rifle is seemingly the conventional official rifle for the Nigerian security agencies. Now, the Ondo State governor was understandably miffed about the development and openly queried why that would happen because he alleged that they had been licensed to carry arms, and then we only got to find out that it was pump action rifles when the Katsina State government replied officially to
okay.
his position. Now, the debate is this: the Nigeria police force, as presently constituted, cannot effectively police Nigeria, and the evidence is out there. It's not something to be debated or disputed. They're understaffed, they're undermanned, under-equipped, poorly motivated, and we keep hearing recurring tales of how they have to buy their own uniforms, buy their own boots. It's it's regrettable. Now, what is clear is we cannot continue to use the same approach and expect different results. Now, there has been a consistent clamor for state policing or local policing. Now, if you explore outside, say Western countries, for example, you have some sort of centralized police, but then you still have local police. Now, why do we have local police? They're familiar with the neighborhood, they're familiar with the terrain, they grew up there or they know the layout of the land. Now, because they know the layout of the land and the people see them every day, they're your everyday neighbor, it is easier to trust them than to trust someone you don't know.
Mm,
Now, understandably, there has been pushback against that, that there's no money for that we don't have enough money to fund state police, where we're going to get the numbers from, blah, blah, blah. Now, the truth of the matter is this: right now, we're dealing with insecurity on a level we've never experienced before. What is the solution? Now, some of the state governments have set up state outfits backed by law. And if they're going to effectively carry out their mandate, they would have to carry some form of weapons. Because the people they're being asked to confront, the people they're being asked to face, come armed. Now, people have said it's not yet time to license weapons, that people should not be allowed to carry weapons. But guess what? People have had licenses before now. I understand there's a current moratorium on the issuance of new licenses, but
mm,
there are people who have existing gun licenses.
right. Does that
Uh,
make them invalid?
so the people who have the current gun licenses, we don't hear reports of people carrying guns running amok in public spaces the way we hear about it in the States. Now, the fear is there's a lot of rage, there's a lot of anger in the land. And if people are then armed, that will cause problems. But guess what? Almost everyone has access to a knife or an axe. We don't hear reports about people being stabbed or axed every day of the week.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, we need to decide: do we want a safer, secure environment where our children can grow up safely, where we can come home and relax at the end of a busy day? Or do we want to continue running around in circles and denying the obvious? And it's something that, thankfully and mercifully, campaign season has started. All the candidates, the major candidates, they need to give us their clear position on the issue of local or state policing? And if they're going to back it,
Mm.
give us details on how you're going to bring it into play.
All right, we'll take a quick break. This is Freshly Pressed news analysis right here on Smooth 98.1. Don't forget, you can send your messages in via WhatsApp. It's 0809 444 981. You could also tweet at Smooth981.
Just on your dial, just the way you like it. That's what I like. There are three people whose calls I won't miss for the world. My mom,
Oh, my grandbabies.
my wife,
Babe, I have this.
and finally, Daily, my guy, who works at ARM. I can't afford to miss his calls. You see, Daily is always on my matter, informing me about investment opportunities before everyone else so I can always be ready. He always has a new strategy to grow my money. The way he carries the matter on his head, eh? You would think it's more than just his day job. But that's why Daily is my person, because he's invested in my tomorrow.
At ARM, we want to help you achieve your goals because when you succeed, we succeed. Visit www.arm.com.ng. ARM, invested in your tomorrow.
Love music. Love life.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. It's Freshly Pressed news analysis, Zibby and Mr. C. And can we move on to our next headline, Mr. C?
Yes.
Okay, so this is coming from This Day. Presidency 2023 budget proposal may be adjusted before Friday's presentation to National Assembly. Now, the presidency yesterday stated that the 2023 budget proposal was still open to some alteration, tweaks, updates before it would be presented by the president to a joint session of the National Assembly. Now, special advisor to the president on media and publicity had stated this while briefing newsmen at the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting. Now, when it comes to the budget, there's been a recurring theme, at least over the past few years, of some extras and some padding, which is something the ICPC has confirmed. What are we expecting this time, considering there are possibly some alterations or updates that could be done before the presentation?
Okay, thank you, Ziggy. So, yesterday the Federal Executive Council did meet, and the only item up for consideration was a draft 2023 budget proposal. Now, however, I get the feeling that they left there without a definite conclusion because Mr. Femi Adesina did say that if there was any input to be received, it will be put into the proposal before it's submitted to the National Assembly on Friday, that is tomorrow.
Mm.
Now, he refused to speak to any of the details in the budget proposal, claiming that it was a thing of honor for the National Assembly to receive it first. Now, the challenge with that position or that response is there's really nothing for us to work with because we don't know what's being put in. So we're going to wait until the presentation before we can start our considerations and our review. Now, with regards to the issue you raised about things being put in, we mustn't forget that when the budget proposal is sent to the National Assembly, both chambers of the National Assembly will then set up committees to review the budgets. And where they are of the opinion that the budget doesn't adequately cover certain areas, they will then insert projects or increase the amount of funding placed in respect of any line item.
Mm.
So it's not necessarily so much the issue of padding, even though there have been clear cases of padding in the past. But it's really a question of harmonizing the executive's position because the National Assembly is not expected to simply rubber stamp anything presented before it. They're supposed to carefully review and scrutinize everything brought before it, and where they feel that there are valuable inclusions to be made, they will make those valuable inclusions. Now, what has happened in the past is there's been a divergence of opinion as to whether the inclusions are valuable or not. So the executive would typically say, projects we considered valuable, you've either slashed them or removed them. And then projects we don't consider valuable, you've included them. But it's all politics at the end of the day. So we wait till Friday to see what is finally presented. and then we'll watch how the National Assembly reviews the budget proposal.
All right, the next headline comes from Premium Times. Senate overrules petitions, confirms all INEC RECs are nominated by Buhari. Now, the Senate confirmed that all 19 nominees appointed by the President as resident electoral commissioners, RECs, for the Independent National Electoral Commission. The appointees were confirmed after the upper legislative chamber had overruled petitions against some of them, accusing them of being bipartisan and of being card carrying members of the All Progressive Congress, the ruling party, of course. They were, however, confirmed just yesterday after the Senate had said there was no concrete evidence to support the allegations that were leveled against some of the nominees.
Okay, thank you, Zibi. So 19 names were confirmed. Of the 19 names, 5 of them are being confirmed for a final term of 5 years each. Now, the 14 other names are fresh commissioners starting the first term of 5 years. Now, interestingly, there were allegations against some of them. The nominee from Ebonyi was accused of being suspended for fraud and corruption when she served as a civil servant. The nominee from Sokoto was allegedly a governorship aspirant in Sokoto in 2015 elections. Now, the Senate, in its wisdom, did say that there was no evidence before it to support the allegations, and the Deputy Senate President was quoted as saying that the law does not require that you were never a member of a political party, but that at the point in time you are not. And what did they do to assure themselves that the members are not, the commissioners, proposed commissioners are not members of the political party? And this is very interesting. They were simply asked if they were members of political parties, and they all said no. And that was that.
But
No,
can't their word be taken?
So their word could be taken, right? But did the Senate lose anything in confirming that? Because the way they speedily dismissed the allegations without even appearing to actually consider them leaves room for some concern, right? And in the Nigeria of today, the average human being will get away with crime if he believes he will get away with it. I'm a lawyer. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen individuals swear to tell the truth, hold a copy of either the Bible or the Quran. And the moment they drop these holy books, everything that proceeds forth from their lips is anything but the truth. So you don't automatically take people at their words, which is really sad. It speaks to the state of the nation. But I personally believe they should have done some more research, done some basic investigation, because if it then turns out that, in fact, some of them were lying, what we'll then hear is, oh, they're already here.
All right, we've got messages coming through. This is from Yinka Bolu. He says, Mr. C says, details don't really matter. And we need to understand, was it a release or a rescue operation? Because these words seem confusing. And he also says the National Assembly is not meant to rubber stamp everything brought to them. Mr. C, in 2 words, please define our National Assembly. Okay, this one is from Tayo. Tayo says, if only we know the intricacies of the legal system, but the pastor remained dogged, and it is commendable. Not all the time do we leave it to God. Security lapses between state and federal governments is giving criminals opportunities to commit crimes. Politicizing the issue is not helping. And he goes further to say there was no, I believe, due diligence on the part of the representative. Okay, Alex says, good morning. All right, Alex, we will thank you for your message, really. Oluwatosin says, of course, the Nigerian police cannot effectively secure the citizens because a sizable percentage of the force is carrying suitcases for politically exposed individuals. Government budget for the equipping of the force, and yet policemen buy their own gear and no one has been prosecuted. Who's doing who? Okay, let's go. This one is from Idima Puza, and he says, Abuja Kaduna train abduction victims released. Thank God. But at what cost? What happened to the abductors? Are they being allowed to stage another abduction at later dates? May God help Nigeria. Godwin says the release of the Abuja Kaduna train captives. First time I heard of it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Dami from Ikeja says the details of how they were released are very important. Mass abductions, despite mountains of cash thrown at the security services over 10 years, is troubling. How do we hold people accountable for failing to do what taxpayers pay them for?
Okay, so let me just quickly respond to all the comments that talk about details. Now, we may not get all the details, and this is the reason, right? If in giving the details, it exposes or reveals how you carried out the rescue, it could jeopardize future attempts or future measures designed to stop future abductions. So they can only, that's why I said they can only release information as much as national security interests permit.
Okay. Nero Cello says, good morning. Kudos to the military for the release of the hostages. How did it happen? Why did they do it? And the details are very important. Okay, we see that. Gilbert Musa says, okay, a lot of reaction to the release of the abductees. Gilbert Musa says, we commend the Nigerian government. More importantly, we need to investigate the alleged information that there was intelligence information prior to this particular attack, but the security operatives were a bit lackadaisical. We need to prosecute people who failed to prevent this train attack. Quarter, I'm sorry, I cannot play your voice notes. Please send your message in a typed form. And okay, Shokba is doing very well, thank you. And let's see. All right, we've got one more message, and this is from Yomi. He says, will licensing guns make the country safer? Okay, Sean says, Sean, come on. Can we at some point just not say, okay, the government and the security agencies have done so well? Why is there such a huge distrust of the government?
Maybe it's because, one, the government hasn't been transparent, it hasn't been open, and two, the government hasn't been accountable to the people. And for this and other reasons, the citizenry finds it hard or difficult to trust whatever they say, because sometimes the government has been caught in several bold lies. When they tell you that there's no part of Nigerian territory under the control of any group outside Nigerian state government, then we have the governors of Kaduna, Niger, and Katsina boldly and openly saying that parts of their states are ruled by non-state actors.
All right, we'll leave it there this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. C.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for all your messages and your responses. That's it for Freshly Pressed this morning. From 8:15, it will be time for the Grapevine.
The headlines, the stories,
Blessing.
the news, in-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly
Have you
pressed
pressed up?
on Smooth